Thank you so much, Yolanda, for joining us. So we just want to know more about Pure Purple
Yeah.
and your entrepreneurship journey when you started, and also just tell us something about what inspired you to create Pure Purple.
Pure Purple is a footwear and accessories brand. It's based out of Nairobi. And what we do is we're very passionate about premium value addition on locally sourced leather. And we do this with significant imprints in community and in sustainability. When I was working, people used to ask me about my shoes a lot. So when I traveled, I would bring in shoes and sell them. Apparently, I was really good at picking out men's shoes. So I came back and said, my business is shoes. And now, while I was in class, I started doing market research, and that's when now Pure Purple started to really form its roots. We found out that Kenya is the third largest producer of hides in Africa. We found out that 90% of our leather goes out in raw semi-processed form. We found out that according to the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, what are Kenyans wearing? Secondhand shoes or cheaper imports coming out of Asia. And that statistic, it was not a good thing. In fact, the word I would use is atrocious. It's an injustice. And it's not that the government is wicked and letting the 90% go out, it's that we don't have enough value adders to continue to retain more leather. And so I dared myself to make a shoe. We started with a sandal. The ladies liked it. We knew who they were. They asked for more colors. We increased the colors of that sandal. So you'll find our anchor sandal is called a Dero. It's a typical gladiator sandal. If you ever saw a sandak, it looks like that, but it's very well made. And you find 60 to 70% of the women who have that have 2 or 3 colorways of the same sandal. So then they started asking for, do you have something for my guy? We added the belt. Do you have something I can take to work? We started giving them corporate things that they could use, covers for their laptops. So we built the line like that, expanding around that woman. So that's how Pure Purple was built.
Wow, amazing. So just following up on that, Yolanda, let me ask you, how do you set your business up for growth? And specifically, what needs to be in place?
I would say have a clear vision. You have to have a clear vision. You have to have a problem that you're solving. Don't just have a business for having a business. You have to make sure you have a product market fit because now you know you might have a product, it's not fitting. So your solution, if you have a problem, that solution, it has to fit that. And then all the other things are hire the right people, focus on established revenue sources. So if you have something that's already working, don't kill it because you're focusing on something else. Just make sure that that becomes your primary and you move with it even as you add other lines. Don't forget about it. Reduce your risks as much as you can. You need to be able to anticipate what could possibly crash your business and mitigate for that. You have to be adaptable. You have to really be nimble, especially when you're building a small corporation. Your turnaround is much faster than a bigger corp, but you have to be very aware of what's happening around you. What is your customer telling you? What are the things happening in the economy or in the finance world or globally that would likely affect you? And then focus on your customer experience. That's very, very important. You do know that the customer is king. And then invest in yourself and invest in the business. So you have to continue to upskill. You'll see that we really invest in going after education, going after equipping ourselves with learning things that are key for us. And you do this with the business as well. You continue to invest in the business. You pump the money back in. You invest in R&D, things like that. And then always think ahead. You have to be the visionary who's always steps ahead. And then have a growth strategy. To grow, you need a strategy for that growth, and then you follow that growth strategy.
Sometimes when you start your entrepreneur or your startup, some of these things require finances. I just want to understand your journey, how you are able to get finances, okay, for your business. Then, and also now that you have grown, how are you able to continue financing your business even for bigger growth?
Okay, so how we started was with my money. I pumped in the money initially. So after that, we've been bootstrapping. Basically, when you're bootstrapping, you're refinancing the money that's coming out of the business right back into the business. It's only very recently that we've started to close grants and awards. And so that's what's been working for us. We are also looking into debt financing And in the future, we are open to equity financing as well. So these things are dictated by what stage are we at and what is it that we need. If it is too early, you might go too early and start uptaking debt, and then it chokes you down. Or it's too early, you give away equity and you get screwed in that in the negotiations. So we are pacing ourselves. So that's how we are financing.
From a personal experience, what are some mistakes you made along the way? Okay. And what are the lessons you have learned from them? And how did you recover from those particular mistakes?
I registered the company really early. So I knew I was going to do something around shoes. We registered, we even made a logo and all of that stuff. Turns out that was not the best strategy because I started with that very early on, and it's only later that we knew what we are doing. That's the time now we had the roots, we figured out what's our why, we had a better vision, a better impact model. And what that meant was we had to go back and rip that logo that we had before and make another one. Now we have the headache of who follows us is not really who are really our, how would I say this, our core customer. So because early on we already started boosting ads, so who's sitting on there, there's a disconnect. So we are really working to fix that. So I would say don't do that before you know who you are and what it is that you're doing. Don't do that, because also there's the disconnect of what is our registration date and when did the business actually start. There's a gap there as well. Another mistake that we've made is staying too long with in partnerships or in relationships that don't work. So this could be suppliers, it could be an employee fit that doesn't work. That also, I would say very early on, when you figure out that this thing is not working, you need to let it go and move on. Sometimes you might like the individual who you're dealing with, but it's not serving your business. So you have to make that separation very early on.
What role has digital advertisement or digital channels played in helping you grow your brand?
Digital is a very, very powerful tool. It enables a lot. I feel like what digital allows us to do is we cut a lot of overhead costs, especially because that's where we are primarily. That's our biggest share. So we are not taking up brick and mortar stores. And that doesn't mean that you can't have a model that has brick and mortar and also has digital. Your teams can work remote, right? So there's better communication with that. You can access resourcing. Again, I can say I can't overemphasize that. So like right now, when you're doing your R&D, you can find out what's going on globally. You can track someone who's running the same business as you in a more advanced market and find out what's going on there. Your customer base is large, it's very wide. Like now, if I had a brick and mortar in Nairobi, I can serve Nairobi and maybe just a particular region. Right now, we do Kenya, and Kenya, we cover Kenya next day. We've covered Kenya, Nairobi, same day. Across the world through DHL, it's like under seven days. Maybe if it maxes out, it's 10 days, and that's Australia. So you can reach Europe in under like 2 days and things like that. And digital is what allows that to happen. You're able to target a customer, market to them directly, and Google is also a powerful tool with that. So that's what digital does. So if I did the rundown, I'd be like, it enables you to work remotely with teams that are remote. One of our sites is not even in Nairobi, and I don't have to show up there every single day.
You've said you've had customers from as far as Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, and thanks to the digital tools. Where outside Kenya and South Africa, where else will you say you have most of your customers coming from, and what do you feel is that hook that Pure Purple has that makes the people want to be even repeat customer and also refer you to other people? So I just want to know what's that one thing that stands out that makes someone from as far as Australia want to order something from Pure Purple?
It's the product, but it's also the systems behind it. So initially when the customer is buying, they're just buying the item for, I love it, it works well. But when they start to know us and start to learn the ethos of the brand, there's more that comes under it. And we realize that we have better support that way. You have to have great customer service for the person to feel delighted and for them to come back again and again. Because even to get a referral, you have to have excellent service, and the product has to speak for itself as well. So we find that these things have to interlink together for you to have that level of retention, penetration, expansion. Yeah, and also having really strong partners. So even though we are MSMEs, who you choose to work with is very important. So your payment gateway support has to be really strong.
Yeah.
So you have to choose a partner who's strong. They're not gonna be failing. Somebody's trying to make a payment, it's not working, or your hosting is too slow. You have to have somebody who's experienced in logistics and has done it over and over. So you find we have a mix of artisans, MSMEs, local corps, global corps. So there's that interlink that also supports the business.
Yeah. And just a follow-up on that. How has Pure Purple brand evolved?
Of course, we changed the logo, but we also had a better definition of values. I don't want to say we changed the values, a better definition of who we are, why we are here. So better impact model, better visioning, all of that stuff came together. Also, the model changed. It was import and retail, and now we are majorly manufacture local. So that also changed. Yeah, so right now we're really thinking about legacy. Like we want to build a business that stands the test of time. So those are things that are core for us. So I would say, and as much as those things changed, the core of the brand has remained the same. Craftsmanship. So there's excellence in workmanship. That's very, very important. And another key pillar is people. So community and people, that's very important to us. These things have to be made in Kenya by Kenyans, right? That combination has to happen like that. And the primary input materials, if they are in Kenya, we are going to use the Kenyan ones. If they are not here, or there's a reason that's forcing us to now go outside, that's when we do that. So that matters to us. We invest back into the community, and that's the place in which we are in. And for us, when we say that, it's not just, are we paying fair wages? Are we hiring Kenyans? It's also the ecosystem. Are we creating wealth around the ecosystem? Are we also initiating skills improvement? Like, let's say, for example, I find an artisan and we're using him. If the workmanship is not as sharp, we invest in making sure it gets to where it is that we want to use it. Another thing for us is sustainability. So for us, that's not just recycling and upcycling, which is a really good component, and we do it. It's also, what are the input materials that you're putting into what it is that you're building? So it has to be quality, it has to be durable, so that you have a longer time using the item. So we're not in fast fashion, it's slow fashion. And what we like to tell people is, let's say we sell you a bag, I'm like, your grandchild should find you with that bag unless there's something utterly wrong that happens to you. The leather should outlast. We give you care instructions, so all of that stuff fits within the sustainability. It's in the design process. Yeah, and then there's the ecological part, and in as much as we can upcycle, recycle, we do it. So you'll see that in the choices of papers that we use. We use primarily, what do you call it, recycled paper. If you've ever had a padlock, the brass padlocks, the tricycle, I think you guys have seen it, right? So when that is discarded, it's taken, it's melted down, and it's recast into the buckles that we use for the belts, for the shoes. That is very durable. And also we have rescued that from going and wasting on the planet. So we do things like that. The choice of soles, those are also upcycled tires that are done very well. So in as much as we can take certain components, add them to the product, and increase the value, we do that. So those things are built into the heart of the brand, and they really matter to us.
How do you balance the strategy of the business, the vision, and also when you start, because you have a vision,
Yeah.
there's a strategy, and then there's the day-to-day running of the business operational. How do you balance these two?
When you look at the mission, it tells you what is the culture that we need to be able to hit that target, which then dictates who can we hire, what are the values that these people have, does it tie in, which then dictates who are our suppliers. You see how the thing now, it goes all the way down to your day-to-day. So you can actually map the trickle down all the way through. And if you keep asking yourself, how does this operation serve the bigger purpose of the mission, then you'll find that even when you're off, you continue to redirect. So that's how I would say we go about it, even on a day-to-day basis. Everything has to build and keep looking back to mission.
So seated here as folks, we have small business entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And you as a successful entrepreneur, what sort of advice can you give them that they need? What do they need to put in place to make sure they have a sustainable business? And then there's normally, as a small business, and we heard also from JB, you are everything. You are the customer service guy, you are the marketing person, you are the finance person. How can you move away from that?
When you know why you're there, even when you have the hard times, that's what's going to carry you through, right? So be bold, be confident, be very steady with it. And the reason why I emphasize this again is hard times are there a lot. And like he said, you find you're doing everything. So you're entrepreneurs, you're always stretched thin and to capacity, and you have like decision fatigue. Everybody's looking at you. What will I do with this? What will I do with that? And you find that it's also alive the way people think that when you're an entrepreneur, you now have a lot of time to go and breathe. Comparatively, you actually don't. When you know why you're unique and you tie that back to your mission, then you find that it's very hard for somebody to replicate that, because that becomes a very specific interlink, right? Protect your build. So that's IP. That's make sure you're following the regulatory requirements. Make sure you have process control and operational control, all of that stuff. And when we say that, that means protect your build even from the inside. So you don't have an employee who comes and like pulls the plug from you from underneath. So you have to watch out for those, and that's why you have process and operations in place. Never think that you're too small to implement these things. Just from the ground, tell yourself you're building a big corp. So if you have that in mind, everything you do will have the standards that a big corp would be looking at, right? Think legacy. So think big. Think something that will outlive you. At least I hope that you're not here building something for like 3 months, then you're like, this is, I'm out. That you have a bigger view of what that is. Care about your how, your when, your again, your why. Think about a team and the community that's around you. Does that answer the question?
Yes. It does. And even as we come to an end, Yolanda, how will an entrepreneur know their next growth area?
Okay. I would say for your next growth horizon, stay in touch with your customer. Know what it is that they need. Sometimes you'll find that your next iteration, it's coming from the customer. This is what they need. Do your research the market, know what the trends are saying. Pay attention to your competitor. What are they doing? What is it that they're looking at? You'd find that these things dictate what your next horizon is. And then again, you're keeping your eyes on the mission, so you won't do anything that's outside of that.
What's your vision like for small businesses, not just in Kenya, but in Africa? And what would you wish see change? Okay.
Yeah, I love that question. So in Africa, SMEs account for 90% of the businesses. So it's a 50% contribution into the GDP. MasterCard Foundation says 44 million MSMEs are in Africa. So what I envision is that we would scale. Okay, we start growing these global multinationals that are always coming from outside, that we would start having them here, like homegrown solutions that Africa has, that then serves Africa's population and then serves the world. That we would start thinking about that we would also start having intergenerational corporations that stay. More impactful things where we ramp up the employment rates, that we would start to maximize the use of our resources. And when we are talking about resources, it's not just what the land produces, it's also us. The unemployment rates are really high, so that's not a resource that's being used well. We would start to recycle and upcycle more. That's still a resource that's not being used well. So my vision really is that we would max out on all of these things, that we would start to build like that and think about legacy businesses and things like that.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. At this stage in time, I'll just ask audiences if you have any question directly to Yolanda, please feel free to ask.
I'd like to know what changed when you're saying now you're open to equity financing and all these other options. What changed? I understand it's a phase of the business, but as the person, what changed for you to be open to that, regardless of the phase that the business is in?
I'd say what changed is I evolved, right? So I evolve, my business also evolves. So we grow in tandem. When you're going for equity financing, you have to have convincing arguments on how you're going to make that money, or even how you're going to bid and close that equity financing. And those gaps would be seen and would be visible.
I'm sitting in this room and I'm seeing very young people who are now trying to see how can I make it? Yeah. What would you tell the younger people about business and getting that why? Not from the corporate English that we speak, but more so from your heart. How did you find your why?
You don't have to have a lot of money to start a business. So if you have a problem that you're solving and you go out and start doing your research and your testing and you have the product market fit, meaning there's a problem, you have the solution for that problem, you're not, it's like it's a match. And now your customers, you start having customers and they know what you're doing. You have good customer service, so they're starting to recommend you. I don't want you to have the illusion that you have to have a lot of money to start. If you can even prove the product market fit, you find that there are a lot of accelerators that are out here that even teach you how to pitch. There's the Google Hustle Academy that Google paid for. You didn't pay for it, and they give you a wealth of knowledge, and you have a lot of resources on there. If you pay attention and follow through, by the time you're done, you can build your business plan, you're able to pitch. So with a solid idea, you can even go out and close financing if that's what you need, right? So don't have it in your mind that this thing is you have to have money. And a good example that I like to use is a baker, right? Because a baker can start at home. You just buy flour and all of the components that you need, and you start from there. It's a good thing that there's digital. You can now take pictures even with your phone and start uploading that app. You put that up, you make a good cake, people start to refer you. So think about it like that. In everything, just think about it like a mustard seed. You start small and then you grow the thing. It won't hurt you if you went in and took a job, even though you know in your mind you would like to start something. Take the job. What having a job helps you with is structure. Also, you get to observe how a build is done. You get to know how it works. So you'd find that I see, being in this ecosystem, I see the difference between somebody who just came and was an entrepreneur from the word go and somebody who took a job and worked at a certain place. They move very differently. And you can see that even in education. And even though now my track looks like it's entrepreneurship, you never know. We could reach a place where I say I want to activate both. I could go back into a career line and still run Pure Purple, or I might stay on in Pure Purple. It's just, am I maximizing my skills, right? And as long as I'm able to maximize those, I don't really subscribe into that thing of pigeoning you into one track, being like, you're a corporate person, that's all you can do. If you're an entrepreneur, that's all you can do. You literally can do whatever it is that you're able or have capacity for. I hope that answers your question, Evans. Okay, great. Now we go to the really hard one. Which is, was it how can I inspire? Why? Oh, how did I come up with my why?
Why? From your heart.
From my heart.
The why to start the
Yeah, my
Um,
why, our why. If we were using our leather, all of it 100%, we should be able to make about $250 million annual injections into our GDP. So we are talking 50,000 jobs. That's significant, is it not? And it's not being done. And as much as we like saying, oh, the government, they can't do everything. So we also have to mobilize and start doing these things. So for me, just sitting there and looking at these numbers, looking at how high our unemployment rates were, looking at what are we wearing as a nation, it was I feel it's an injustice. It's an injustice I would be doing even if I continued with the retail and important retail model solely as what I was doing. So I wanted more impact. Why would I do it if I don't have a strong sense of mission, right? And that's how the how starts being defined. It becomes, yes, do we want to make money? Yes, so we are for profit. That's why we are not an NGO. Do we want to make a difference? Yes. What is that difference that we are making? We then define that, and that's why you'll see that we are very insistent. These jobs have to be held by Kenyans. They have to be upskilled and be able to do it. We're not just going to build just things so that you buy us because we are Kenyan. We're going to make really good things that can compete in the world stage. I let people be shocked that this thing came from us, you know. So they're used to getting our leather raw. Now let's send them finished product, right? And let them be pleased. Let Kenyans also be proud to be associated with these things. And as we are thinking Kenya, we're starting to think Africa, right? And there's a closed caption I like to use when we don't have a lot of time to say, what are you doing? What are you doing? And we like saying that, yeah, it's like Wakanda, but in the leather space. So that's now what it then becomes. So that can be done by anyone in any different place. You know, somebody can be like, yeah, it's Wakanda, but in the cake space, it's like whatever. I hope that's answering the question of how we defined what is our why.
I think that's a perfect place to bring this to an end. Thank you so much, Yolanda. Give a round of applause. Yeah. Just to recap some key themes that I've picked from the conversation with Yolanda is that having your why, your true why, as Pauline asked back there, what's your true north? And then having the perfect product market fit in the sense of there must be a gap you have identified, okay? And then you have also identified how to solve that particular gap. So financing should never be an issue until you already have an idea that works. And Yolanda talked about different program accelerators to be able to help you to push that. So thank you so much, Yolanda.